Hey everybody, welcome back to the Football Radio Show. Casey Mallon here with Dave Hewitt. We are rolling through the NFL, previewing all the divisions heading into the new season. Making our way through the AFC North, and we're going to start on the bottom with the Cleveland Browns. They finished fourth in the North with a 5-11 record, 2-4 in the division. And Dave, lots of pieces starting to come in here for the Browns. There was speculation that in the draft they would get a new quarterback, but I think you and I were kind of in agreement. So let's go ahead and see what Brandon-Weeden can do before you go ahead and pull the escape cord on this dude.
Yeah, no doubt about that. You know, he was a first-round draft pick for a reason, and he's a mature guy in terms of just, the amount of...
47 years old.
Exactly, one of the oldest quarterbacks in the league. But, hey, give the guy a chance to get out there. Obviously, new coach here with Judzinski, new offensive scheme with Norv Turner coming in. And he's obviously had a positive effect on developing quarterbacks in the past. So I say this is a good fit. He's got a big, strong arm, and I have a feeling he's going to have a successful season. They also add depth there at the quarterback position by bringing in Campbell as well, who's an experienced guy who can back him up.
You know, the thing about Weeden was we saw him play a lot of college football, and he played in some pretty big-time games, and it never seemed to be bigger than he was. He always came through in those games, short career at Oklahoma State due to the baseball stuff, but anyways, he seemed to play good in the big games. Last year didn't have enough weapons. That kind of cursed Colt McCoy as well, but they kind of fixed that too.
Yeah, actually, they did switch out some of the weaponry there. Josh Cribbs is gone. Mohamed Massaquoi gone. Ben Watson out of there. But they brought in David Nelson from the Buffalo Bills, who's a pretty good guy. Devon Bess as well out of Miami comes in there. And like I said, they did address the quarterback position. They shook out the whole roster, the back end of it, and they add Jason Campbell and then Brian Hoyer, who's maybe that guy that has been sneaking through the cracks, who ultimately, if Weeden doesn't pan out, could be the guy later on that they look at.
Yeah, and I can't leave out Josh Morgan. They got him in the supplemental draft last year. He really came on, found that connection with Weeden. He is going to be sitting out the first 4 games with the suspension. That is,
ouch,
is unfortunate. And they also have that big, awesome running back in Trent-Richardson. A little banged up last year, but he still had quite the production. Found the end zone often.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, if he can stay healthy, he's going to be an absolute beast. And Norv Turner has had a huge positive impact on running backs as well throughout his career. So he's in a great spot. As long as he can stay healthy, he will, in all likelihood, excel.
And Dave, on paper, this looks to be one of the better offensive lines in the NFL.
Well, yeah, it's center Alex Mack and left tackle Joe Thomas. Those are the household names that pretty much everybody knows. You don't know that many guys on Cleveland's roster, but you know those guys, So you got to give them credit. If they can stack together a line that can block long enough for those longer developing pass plays that Norv likes to run, as well as to create some holes for Richardson to run through, this could suddenly turn into a much better football team. And then, of course, there's the development of Greg Little. Athletically, the guy has got everything going for him. Unfortunately, he's just got to make sure to secure the ball when it hits him in the hands, okay? So as long as he can handle that.
Easier said than done if you're a receiver in the NFL.
Now, he's shown in flashes how good he can be. Let's see if he takes that next step.
And one more thing, Dave, on the offense, Jordan Cameron's kind of everybody's sleeper for an emerging tight end. We'll see how he does replacing Ben Watson. All right, let's go ahead and move this over to the defense. Got some moving parts here. One of the biggest pickups in the offseason was Paul Kruger coming over from the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, and obviously they're looking for him to make a big, big impact. They also bring in Quentin Groves, another outside linebacker there, as well as Desmond Bryant from the Raiders, defensive tackle known best for his mug shot.
Classy.
Hey, a physical player. They're looking to get more physical up there on the defensive front. In that division, you need to be physical defensively.
Yeah, they spent the first 4 picks of this draft on the defensive side of the ball. That tells you what they think they have placed on the offensive side. And with that first-round pick, 6th overall, Barkevious Mingo.
Barky Mingo.
Fun name to say.
It's fun.
And so far, he's been all the rage in mini camps. So we'll see if that transfers to the field once they get out there in some of these preseason games. But, Dave, Joe Hayden, also one of the better defensive backs in the NFL. They got to get that back end sorted out, too.
Yeah, and I imagine they will. I mean, Hayden, obviously a star in the making. They'll have their work cut out for them in the division there, but they should be improving.
Yeah, that's where it's got to start. They got to do better than 2 and 4.
Okay, let's go ahead and move this one along, Casey. Next up, it was third place. It was the Pittsburgh Steelers coming in at a record of 8-8 last year. Obviously disappointing for Steeler fans, Casey, accustomed to being a perennial playoff team there. And in the last couple of seasons, Big Ben running for his life. I think it's kind of catching up to him a bit. He's been banged up quite a bit throughout his career, but they've really invested in that O-line. And if they can shape it up, they could really revamp both the ground game and the protection for Ben Roethlisberger at the same time.
Yeah, and they actually got a lot of that handled in the draft last year. DeCastro, he was injured, missed most of the year. They also drafted Mike Adams out of Ohio State. Lots of players moving on. Starks is gone. Willie Colon is gone. So they are starting to fuse that offensive line with some of these younger guys. And Dave, if Pittsburgh gets that line sorted out and they get back to that power run game, I mean, they could squeeze a few more years out of Big Ben. They did bring in Bruce Gradkowski to back him up there, and they drafted Landry Jones in the 4th round. So they have the quarterback of the future, but I think there is still a lot of football to get out of Big Ben. They let Mike Wallace go ahead and leave for Miami, but they really like what they have in Sanders and Brown.
Yeah, absolutely. And they also drafted in the 3rd round Marcus Wheaton, who knows, they always seem to draft well in Pittsburgh. They let the guys go there too costly, and they replace them with guys they drafted. They also, of course, let Rashard Mendenhall out of there, and they bring in a exciting new running back, Casey.
Oh, yeah, Le'Veon Bell from Michigan State. This guy was born to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, dude. He's a bruiser. He's an awesome running back. I think that's really going to set that situation up better there. They bring in Stevens Howling. He kind of swaps out with Mendenhall, but Howling's definitely got a huge impact on the return game. And they got younger at line, and they got younger in the backfield.
Yeah, it's really going to all come down to that line. I mean, if that line gels, then this is going to be the Steelers that we're accustomed to. Okay, swing it over to the defense, Casey. So a little change on defense as well. Out is safety Will Allen, as well as obviously very impactful outside linebacker James Harrison.
Yeah, Dave, this Pittsburgh Steelers defense has been known as one of the tops in the league as long as Dick LeBeau has been there. Last year, they just didn't get the turnovers. Overall, they were a -10 in the turnover ratio. They had to get some youth there in the defense. That was kind of the running gag last year. These guys were getting old. Still played great as a unit, just didn't get the turnover, which they feasted off of in the past. So they went out and they got Jarvis-Jones in the 1st round. There was a lot of speculation that he might go higher than that, some questions off the field with injuries and stuff. But if this dude is healthy, he is going to be a big-time Pittsburgh Steeler.
Stiller, despite we were trying to say the Steelers were old last couple seasons and they weren't there with the turnovers, but they were the number 1 team in terms of yardage. They were the number 1 team in terms of pass defense and number 2 against the run. So certainly a very, very productive defense last year. And they did draft in the 4th round Shamarko Thomas, who conceivably would be groomed under Palomalu for the future.
And still, despite all those old guys out there, less than 20 points given up a game, that's not too bad. I like the youth infusion coming. You know, it's hard when you're on the top of your division and the tops in the league each year to draft great because you're lower in the draft. But they seem to do a good job of that. They stick to their formula. They don't overpay. They'll get the next guy up, and I think the Steelers are going to be fine, and they're going to make a push to try to get out of that 3rd place 8-8 record. All right, the team that they were looking up at, or one of the two, was the Cincinnati Bengals. They finished at 10-6, the Bengals did, made their 2nd straight appearance into the playoffs, led by Andy Dalton. And Dave, in the draft, they addressed a couple specific needs, and they got Dalton a few weapons. And I know that you're excited about the 2 tight end formation there.
That is correct, sir. As you know, Gresham, one of your guys. That's right. And they bring in Tyler Eifert, one of my guys. And I really think this 2 tight end tandem thing, which took over the league lately, may be the Bengals deal going forward here with these 2 talented receiver tight end guys. Man, they can block and they can catch. It is going to be exciting. In addition to that, in the 2nd round, they pick up at running back Giovanni Bernard. And they brought in last year the law offices, Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, and he took a little time to get going, but he was very solid as the season unfolded. But they're looking for Bernard to be a much more explosive element to their offense in the ground game, and they are very excited about him right now in camp, about what he's going to bring a new dimension to that offense.
And, you know, Andy Dalton's played pretty good in the regular season. He has struggled once it came to the playoff time, almost a 20% drop-off in the completion percentages there, so he's got to pick it up. But he's got, with those 2 tight ends you mentioned, the new running back, and of course A.J. Green, obviously one of the up-and-coming receivers in the NFL. He's a big-time playmaker. Mohamed Sanu, he came out of nowhere. People really like Tim Hawkins, is very fast, so it's a nice combination, a lot of weapons there. All right, Dave, let's go ahead and move this over to the defense, really about continuity. a lot of people went out and spent on other teams' free agents. You like what the Bengals did. They kept all their dudes home.
Yeah, and they've been doing this for a little while. They don't overspend on other people's free agents, but what they've done lately is draft well, and they re-sign their guys, and that's what they did here for the most part. Really kept that defense intact, and it was a pretty good defense, actually. 8th overall in points given up, 6th in terms of yardage, so a very solid group, and I think that they can get better, actually, defensively, as they, like I said, keep that continuity, keep that core of guys, and just keep adding to them. And I really believe that this defense is going to be one of the best defenses in the league.
And you hear these players talk about Mike Zimmer. They love to play for this guy.
Absolutely.
He's going to be a head coach in the next few years. So the Bengals are going to keep improving on defense. They're getting more weaponry on offense, and it looks to be very exciting for these guys moving forward.
Not to mention, let's just make sure we do mention that they did bring in James Harrison, and he is going to have a chip on his shoulder the size of a giant piece of steel.
Yeah, I don't know how many games they're going to get out of him next year, but he's going to play like a man on fire in at least 2.
Okay, let's bring this thing to the first place team in the division. That is the 10-6 Baltimore Ravens, also the Super Bowl champion Baltimore Ravens. Casey, last year this team had a great start, then they kind of struggled a little bit mid-season there, and boy did they peak at the right time, huh?
They did, in the middle of the season, had a few games there where they gave up over 200 yards on the ground, and we thought, man, this is a shell of the Baltimore Ravens defense that we know, but they just didn't have all their big playmakers on the field at the same time. They finally got all those cats healthy, and then it showed there was maybe not a hotter team down the stretch there, and they rode it all the way to the Super Bowl. Well, a lot of those dudes are gone now.
Yeah, actually, Casey, I was just going to say, the last couple of seasons, turnover has kind of been the storyline here. Last year, they really persevered despite the turnover. Once again, massive turnover. Let's start this one really offensively, Casey. What are they going to do without Anquan Bolden? Matt Burke, Vontae Leach, these are big-time contributors to that offense.
Yeah, dude, in the playoffs, Anquan Bolden was
clutch.
Oh, yeah, off the charts, man. He was the go-to guy there. But they really like Torrey Smith, and he showed signs last year of becoming that go-to guy. And Jacoby Jones, he obviously, the Super Bowl, he had a great postseason,
awesome.
The 70-yarder against the Broncos. So they have some weapons there. And Pitta and Dixon both had times last year where they weren't the healthiest. They get both those cats healthy. Pitta is a star in the making, too. There's lots of weapons there, and we haven't even gotten to Ray Rice. We know he's nice. They have Pierce back there, too. He's going to take some of Rice's carries this year, but they have the 1-2 punch there in the running game. They have the outside speed with Smith and Jones, and with those 2 tight ends, we'll see how effective that offense is with Joe Flacco defending that Super Bowl crown.
I have to say, I was so impressed with Bernard Pierce throughout the playoff run and everything. Man, did he really contribute so much. And I think that there's going to be even more balance between Rice and Pierce moving forward. Rice is fine with sharing the backfield with this kid, and it looks like a nice tandem.
All right, Dave, on the defensive side of the ball, tell me if you've heard of any of these guys, okay?
Yeah,
Ray Lewis.
I'm familiar with him.
Ed Reed.
Oh, that guy? Yeah.
Danielle Ellerby, you know him. Paul Kruger.
Okay, wow.
Bernard Pollard.
These are all the stars of the Ravens, right?
They were the stars of the Ravens, brother.
Oh.
All these cats are gone.
Oh,
you know what? But
wow.
Ozzie Newsome, dude, one of the best GMs in the business, man.
No doubt.
It's like he makes stars out of nobodies, and they did a really good job of filling in those spots with some big-time free agent names.
Yeah, no doubt. Obviously, we know how awesome they have been at drafting and grooming their guys. And it seems like when people leave, they don't always succeed outside nearly as well as they did in that system there with them. But they bring in some great free agents here, starting off with the Elvis Dumervil fax debacle over there in Denver. They get Dumervil here. What an addition for a pass rusher for them. And then in the back there, they bring in Michael Huff. He was a top 10 pick for the Raiders there, but he never really excelled. I think that he's going to really find himself a home here in Baltimore, and I think they're going to get him to play at a higher level than he's ever played at, not to mention some of these defensive linemen like Chris Canty and Marcus Spears that they brought in. I think they've done a fantastic job reloading. Obviously, it is very difficult when you lose a Ray Lewis and an Ed Reed. That's 22 Pro Bowls between those two dudes. Okay?
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, 22. So you're not going to fully replace those guys, right? You move forward, though, and you put together a new lineup, and I like what they've done.
Yeah, and you still have T-Sizzle there, and you have Haloti Nada, and plus Webb might be their best secondary player. He was on the team. He just got hurt, blew out the knee against the Cowboys. He's going to be back, dude. I don't think they're really going to miss a step. Like you said, Ray Lewis, the emotional leader, but out on the field, man, hate to say that Ray lost a step. We saw a little bit of that in the Super Bowl. The Niners really attacked him in some of those pass coverages, so they needed to get younger there. It's going to be interesting to see if those cats can mesh, but if they can just stay in it, by the end of the season, I think they're going to be just fine.
Yeah, not to mention we saw last year they really weren't the greatest defense. They did gel at the right time, but offensively they became much more of a powerhouse. And when that offensive line really started to gel, and they're getting those guys back. So look for this team to, once again, be right in the mix for the division, if not for the Super Bowl.
Over the top. All right, that is going to do it for our AFC North preview. Coming up next, our NFC North preview. You do not want to miss that. And you don't have to. Just follow Football Radio Show at FootballRS on Twitter, or like us on Facebook, or heck, do it the old-fashioned way, footballradioshow.com. It's just that easy, people. Oh, yeah, and you can subscribe to the free podcast at iTunes. We make it that easy for you to get your head chock full of NFL information. All right, for Dave Hewitt, I'm Casey Mellon, footballradioshow.com.